You guys know that I love FNAF fan games, anything from the most popular hits to the little games with 6 followers. The fan game community is something I've kept up with for years now, and now that I'm a FNAF YouTuber, I find myself checking what's going on GameJolt very regularly. Since I cover and play fan games so often, I recently found myself wondering, what was the very first FNAF fan game? At first, I thought of Five Nights at Wario's because that game was announced in early December 2014 and released a month later in January 2015, but then I remembered that Radiance's famous Treasure Island game was a remake of the original, which was released as a demo on December 1st, 2014, according to the wiki. Markiplier actually played Treasure Island on December 17th, 2014, so that release date is likely accurate, and I was convinced this was the first FNAF fan game. But when I was asking some people what the first fan game they can remember was, I was reminded of something I haven't thought about literally since 2014. A game that holds a tremendous role in the world of FNAF, but hasn't been remembered that well. A game that was released on the very early date of November 6th, 2014. I am thrilled to discuss Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Massacre. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Massacre was put up on GameJolt by Zamins on November 6th, 2014, making it the very first FNAF fan game on GameJolt. This does technically mean there could have been some Flash games or Scratch games and stuff like that before this came out, but nobody seems to know of any, and in fact a lot of people don't even know about this one. Hell, as I mentioned, I had forgotten about it. I had not even remotely thought of this game since 2014 or maybe 2015 at the latest. This game even came out a few days before FNAF 2, so this is probably the only FNAF fan game to release before any official sequels. This is the first FNAF fan game and it barely has over 100 followers. That's just insane to me when you think about the fact that the FNAF fan game scene is so large that we are currently at a point where the developer of FNAF is helping fund and publish some popular fan games. How is this not being discussed more? I actually reached out to the developer of this game and asked him some questions, which I'm excited to get into. But what I want to bring up right now is that they said they have never been interviewed regarding this game. Not once. That just blows my mind. So, let's talk about this game, and then we are going to hear the story behind the first FNAF fan game for the very first time. So let's talk about the game. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Massacre is an FPS game where you just shoot the shit out of a bunch of humanoid Freddy models. And that is it. The opening area is sheltered with random buildings and solid black walls, and the only place you can go is forward through a door where the horde of Freddys with shotguns is. You kill the hell out of them, and then once you've wiped them out, you have to avoid some landmines, I guess. They're just scattered on the floor, or maybe there's only one, I don't know. And then you go to this pile of boxes, and you can get a key from one of those boxes. And then you have to open the door to this small room, and the game ends. You get a check from the developer for the Bite of 87. You get paid for the Bite of 87, don't question it. Some more fun details are the floating fish that's to your left when you spawn. The starting area is full of tanks. You can get a shotgun from one of the dead Freddys, but let's be real, there's no point. You can get to the room that ends the game from either the left or right side, and on the right side, there's this ominous figure that you can't kill that doesn't do anything. The developer later told me that there were plans for this character later on. There are also areas on both the left and right where you can find just one more Freddy hanging out. So yeah, this game is ridiculous and has very little substance, but it is a certified hood classic, as the kids say. But what's the story behind this game? Why did Zamins make this absurd shooter that ended up being the first ever fan game before the scene was so massive? Well, as I said, I'm happy to say we can learn directly from the developer. Zamins made Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Massacre when they were only 13 years old, using FPS Creator, a simple software that is meant to make FPS games really quickly. And FPS Creator succeeded at its goal, because Zamins made Pizza Massacre in a single day, likely in a few hours, once again at 13 years old. So that explains the quality of the game. Not to bash the game, but they were 13, using a software that prides itself on making shit quickly, and the developer made it in a day. it's easy to see why the game is so janky and also why it's so short. But I have to mention, this game wasn't meant to be taken super seriously. Although there were plans at one point to improve the game and give it more depth, it's worth acknowledging that this game was not made to be technically impressive. Unfortunately though, that is also likely the reason that this game isn't very well known. Zemins himself said, "I believe that this was definitely one of the earliest FNAF fan games online, certainly a first on GameJolt, although I think the community focuses on other early fan games since they were well made." And you can't really argue with that. Treasure Island and the original Wario's have aged like piss, but they aren't 2-minute experiences that consist of nothing but constantly shooting forward. So I guess the next question would have to be, why did Zemins make this game? There weren't any fan games to be inspired by, and it's not like FNAF was originally an FPS game, so what was the inspiration behind this in particular? The answer is hilarious. The main inspiration that drove me to make the game was the fact I could never beat it. I kept trying and trying, but finally gave up. I was around 13 years old and wanted to poke fun at the game by creating a poorly made version where you shoot Fazbear. However, just because I made my game for that reason, I greatly appreciate FNAF and enjoyed my time while playing the games. So in a fascinating way, the very first FNAF fan game was more of an anti-fan game. The developers still liked the series, but this game was made out of frustration and to make fun of the game, neither of which are particularly positive things. Zemins made the very first FNAF fan game because they were so pissed they wanted to shoot Freddy Fazbear with a gun. It has been almost 8 years since Pizza Massacre came out, so I needed to ask Zemins how he feels about the game looking back on it. This is what he had to say. "It feels weird knowing that my little game that I made as a 13-year-old, mainly as a joke, took off. Looking back at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Massacre, I feel slightly embarrassed that I published such a wonky fan game. I still think it's funny that my game happened to be the first on GameJolt. It certainly impacted my life more than I would have guessed. I realized that I can actually invest my time into game development and see what happens. On the other hand, it gave me bragging rights to my friends. LOL. The game actually received one update during its lifespan, so I wanted to ask Zemins if there were more updates planned at some point. They said, "I wanted to actually make it a decent game, but never got around to it. I wanted there to be its own lore." But everyone, I have news. In early 2022, after 7 years of silence, Zemins made a post on the official Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Massacre page, simply saying, "Should I update this?" And a couple weeks after our initial conversation, Zemins emailed me and said, "I've decided. I'm going to remake the game and release an update for it, keeping the original. Game is uncancelled." So, follow Zemins on GameJolt and Twitter, both links will be in the description. The very first FNAF fan game and a legend in the community are coming back, and that is not something you want to miss as a FNAF fan. I have no idea what this remake/update will consist of, but I am so excited to see the first fan game developer come back to this historical project. Even if it's like memed on, even if it's a janky, wonky game like he said himself, this is the first FNAF fan game, and he's coming back to the scene. This little dopey FPS game holds such a significant role in what has become a massive community. But unfortunately, whether it's because of its quality or simply the fact that it was before its time, this game has been forgotten by many FNAF fans. To quote a comment on Pizza Massacre's GameJolt page, "This fan game crawled so other fan games could run. It's too bad that this game doesn't get the recognition that all the other games get. This time capsule shows how far fan games have gotten from this point, and it's still here up on GameJolt, frozen in time."